From a perspective of methodology, what would you say the PMO should be doing for the portfolio, for the delivery endeavour?
I think where the PMO needs to be on methodology is, again, matching the organization to what you're trying to achieve. Don't get too consumed by the textbook. So don't allow yourselves as a portfolio office to get too consumed about Agile or about P3O or whatever it might be. They all have a place, they're all important, they all have great value. But if they don't match the culture of your organization and the capability of the organization, you're going to have a problem. And again, we've recovered many programs as an example that have been over agiled, they've been evangelized, there's been sort of agile evangelism, and we are great supporters of agile. In our software business, we use agile methodology completely. But there are some organizations, and PMOs have sometimes let this happen, whereby the main event of the program has become the methodology rather than the program itself. And where the PMO needs to help is to recognize how you deploy those methodologies in a way that suits and is going to be successful in your individual organization. So if you've got a low maturity organization and you've got a piece of technology that's being built in order to generate additional sales through your customer call center or whatever, then you've probably got a hybrid. The technology quite possibly could be produced using an agile methodology. But you then need to be a bit more predictable about training, the business change element within the call center, etc. And based on the capability and the culture of the organization you're working in, you may need to look at how you then make that hybrid of a combination of agile and a more traditional waterfall approach that enables the organization to line up behind sprints and releases with some predictability to make sure they're then in a position to manage the business change that's got to happen to realize the benefits. So I think if I was to advise a PMO, I would say, with regards to methodology, don't let the methodology become the main event. The methodology is the means to essentially drive your journey. It's not any more than that. It's your navigation path to a successful conclusion. And you need to match it to the people that you're working with.
Have you got any examples, Rupert, where the PMO of an organisation has had an over-adherence to methodology and over-reliance on methodology?
One example was a very important program that was a technology-driven program. So mistake number one was automatically the sponsor of the program was actually the person who was going to be the recipient of the solution. So what happened was, it was a program in a large media business. They had a piece of technology that was going to be developed in order to enable the sales side of the business to be much more effective. It was a technology build with some business change around it. The sponsor wasn't technical at all, so didn't really know how to engage with that side of the program. What happened was the technology side of the business took a very techie approach to the program, and it was pure agile. They had scrum masters, they had sprints, epic stories, and it was all about running that within one part of the organization. And no one was really communicating with the user group. And so they got a year and a half downstream. They started delivering some of the technology on their new platform. And when they sat down and said, right, well, the technology is going to be ready in about 6 weeks' time, the business users just weren't even close to being ready to gear up to do all the training, the business change. There were some structural changes that needed to happen. And it ended up delaying by about 7 months in order to pull that back. It was actually quite successful in the end, but it was hugely impacted by this focus on methodology and over-evangelizing and over-focusing on a very specific textbook methodology.
And when you go into an organisation, Rupert, how do you appraise the need for methodology? How do you know what's the right weighting, if you like, of methodology that should be applied to any given scenario?
We have a work package called Boost Start. and it's a program definition package of work. And it's probably generally used on tier 1 or tier 2 programs. It's branded Boost Start because it's a lot more exciting and interesting for people to engage with than something that's branded program definition. That just sounds dull, and it sounds slow, and it sounds like Gantt charts. So Boost Start is all about pace and acceleration and dynamic and a wow factor. And base one in a Boost Start work package is that we sit down with the key people. We work out who are the key stakeholders that need to be involved here. What does the picture look like? We start to outline the transformation or the change journey that they're going to go on, and that determines who's going to be involved. We then challenge the people we're working with about the level of capability, and we'll go out and actually speak to some of those stakeholders about the sort of barriers that there are going to be to them: timings, capability levels, attrition rates. At the end of the day, Paul, it's pretty simple. We're just talking. We go out and we talk to people, and by talking and by bringing them into our Boost activity room, the bar, that's where we can very quickly pick up the level of capability, the level of maturity, how much change is going to have to go through different parts of the organization, and therefore what level of mix of methodology they can work with effectively.